earlier today, Season 3 Loaded kicked off, and we got all kinds of fundamental gameplay changes for Warzone. We got new features, new loot items and perks. We got a new weapon from Vanguard and all, but the one thing that through all of that, we didn't quite get around to talking about in our update video was the weapon tuning. That video was long as is, but adding in additional weapon tuning talk would have just been way too long. So today I wanted to break down as a second video here, the weapon changes that Raven made and the changes that it means for the meta here upcoming and what weapons are now dominant within Warzone. So that said, as we go along, drop your thoughts below. Do you like these weapon tuning changes? Do you not like them? Whatever the case, feel free to drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone, all things Season 3 Loaded here going forward, covering more of the content as it unfolds. And of course, Modern Warfare 2 content here very, very soon. We'll keep you up to date with all of that. So if you guys are at all interested, I'd love to have you in the community. That said, let's talk about these weapon changes. First and foremost, apologies. This is probably going to be a little bit of some droning information, talking numbers and all that kind of stuff, but straight from the source, these are the changes that we saw to these weapons in this update. The AK-47 from Black Ops Cold War had a nerf to the neck damage multiplier decreased to 1.15, which was down from 1.2, so not as viable. The headshots obviously still being where you want to land, but doesn't give as much leeway in that. Then the 20-inch Spetsnaz RPK barrel had a reduction in its recoil control from 8.5% to 7.5. The AS-44 saw a couple of buffs in that initial recoil that was slightly decreased, and the bullet velocity was increased by 3.56%, and also has a now functioning on-hand perk, which it did not before. The bar from Vanguard had a handful of adjustments as well, mostly buffs, but the headshot damage multiplier was increased to 1.85, which is up from 1.5, making this thing honestly really dangerous if you hit your headshots. Now, the 30-06 20-round fast mag, that capacity was increased to 30, which is up from 20, so the name will probably reflect that soon. The 8mm Clouser 30-round magazine had an increase to 40 rounds as well. The 50 BMG 30-round magazine had an increase to 40 as well, up from 30, but also a bullet velocity scale increased from 1.1 to 1.2. And the 50 BMG 40-round mags ended up having a magazine capacity upwards of 60, making it a little bit more viable here now, maybe as a mainstay weapon in that meta, given that you have that ammo available. But the fire rate multiplier was decreased to negative 15%, which it was previously only negative 10. So you're going to have some more impact here on that. The Cooper Carbine had a bullet velocity increase of 4.55%. The C58 from Cold War had a neck damage multiplier decrease to 1.1, which is down from 1.2. Again, not allowing for as much leeway here if you don't hit your headshots. The CR56 AMAX also caught a few nerfs as well, with a max damage decreased to 31. Previously it was at 35, which is pretty incredible that it stayed that high for that long, but the minimum damage was also decreased to 24, which is down from 31. So hefty nerfs to the CR56 AMAX. If that was one of your primaries, you might want to repurpose it or take it out of your main loadouts. The FARA 83 though had a minimum damage decrease to 22, which was down from 23. A weapon that I don't think really needed to be nerfed, but it caught a nerf anyway. The Nikita AVT had an adjustment to the recoil pattern for easier use, and the sprint to fire time was increased by 10%. The Intraburst had a headshot multiplier increase to 1.6, up from 1.5. Still don't know if I would necessarily consider this a viable weapon. It's still, in most circumstances, not all that great. The 303 British 36-round magazine, though, the faster fire rate one, though, had a movement speed scalar increase to 1.02 and a damage range increase to only having a 10% penalty rather than a 20% penalty beforehand. The NZ41 had a handful of adjustments here where the recoil pattern and intensity was adjusted overall, but also the Orb Weaver barrel had a horizontal recoil control increase by 10% and a bullet velocity increase to 40%. Now, the Sakura 50-round magazine and the 8mm Clouser rounds saw some adjustments to the fire rate multipliers, damage ranges, and bullet velocities, respectively, and the Orb Weaver Custom, the LOR Burst, and the Ravenwood attachments also saw adjustments to the bullet velocity and damage ranges. They really went heavy on this, trying to make it a little bit more competitive, so we'll see if that actually does make any difference in the meta. The Vargo surprisingly had a minimum damage increase to 24, up from 23, and a headshot damage multiplier increase to 1.53, up from 1.5. It previously caught nerfs, so seemingly maybe trying to correct course here or find a better balance for the Vargo might be worth checking out after this update. We'll see if it gets back into the meta. That's something I need to get a little bit more hands-on time with. The Volkssturm Gewehr had a headshot damage multiplier increase to 1.55, up from 1.5, and the neck damage multiplier increased to 1.25, up from 1.2, as well as an adjustment to the movement speed, decreasing that by 5%. The XM4 caught a couple of nerfs here, where the max damage decreased to 28, down from 29. The max damage range was decreased to 20.3 meters, which is down 2 meters compared to previously. The neck damage multiplier was decreased to 1.3, which is down from 1.33, and that rounds out our rifles. Now, the marksman rifles of the SVT, M1916, and M1 Garand all ended up having adjustments adjustments here with this, with adjustments to the max damage, minimum damage, and bullet velocities, while the M1 Garand saw a headshot damage multiplier increase and a bullet velocity increase. Now the snipers, there were a handful of them here, and honestly, there were a lot that tried to give some buffs to the Vanguard weapons. The HDR saw a bullet drop-off increase, the Pellington had a nerf here to the damage range, the ZRG had an upper torso damage multiplier decrease, with the Combat Recon barrel having its bullet velocity decreased. The AX50 saw bullet velocity decrease, but the 3-line rifle had a ton of buffs to it. This being something where we saw the bullet velocity increased, the bullet drop-off decreased, the sprint to fire scalar increased, and a realignment to the reticle to now properly center on your screen. But the 5mm MN Custom, the Empress 514, the Empress 700mm, the Kovalevskaya 700mm, the Kovalevskaya 820mm, the 30-06 20-round mags, and the 303 British 5-round magazines all had buffs to them. So a lot here going on. The Dragunov saw a max damage range increase to 1600 units, which is roughly 40.64 meters, which is up from 34.93 meters. The Rytek saw a handful of buffs and nerfs to it to the max damage, increasing that max damage, but the range itself was decreased. But the Rytek can now one-shot headshot, as can the M82, bringing that max damage again up to 125. The Type 99 had buffs to the 5.6mm 8-round magazine, the Klauser 5-round magazine, and the Sakura 776mm barrel. Damage ranges and bullet velocities all adjusted there, with the Gorenko next up seeing bullet drop-off decrease, but adjustments to the 420mm Empress, reinforced stock, and the 13mm AM 10-round magazine, with ADS scalars increased on that, but the Empress having a bullet velocity increase to 40%, which was up from 11, so quite a difference there. And finally, for the snipers, the Kar 98K from Vanguard added Frenzy as a weapon perk, and the max damage range was increased to 48.9 meters, with a few of the attachments having increases to ADS speed, damage range, ADS time scalar, and move speed scale. The shotguns saw a sweeping decrease by 20% in damage to the Street Sweeper, the Gallo, the Jack, the Origin, the R90, and the Graciato. But the combat shotgun saw some buffs in the move speed scale and the ADS move speed scale, while increasing the bullet velocity and damage range on the Framble Precision, bullet velocity on the Framble number 3, the Chariot 16 in short, and the sawed-off barrels saw some buffs as well. Jumping over to the SMGs, the Milano saw a hefty number of nerfs, with the max damage range being adjusted, the mid damage being added, decreasing the mid damage range and the minimum damage overall to 27 down from 30. The Lapa had a max damage decreased to 27, but also that max damage range increased. So over distance, you're not going to feel it as much, though it still is a nerf. The mid damage saw a decrease, but that mid damage range was increased, and the minimum damage overall was decreased as well. The OTS-9 saw a max damage decrease to 29, down from 30. The Armagera 43 saw a slight reduction in its initial recoil, with vertical recoil multiplier decreases to the body 315, which is a buff, and the 30 Russian short 34-round magazine saw a damage penalty decrease and visual recoil decrease. Now the Owen gun caught a hefty number of adjustments here, and all of them being nerfs. This, we saw an upper extremity and lower extremity damage multiplier decrease, a max damage range decrease, and a mid damage range decrease. The Gorenko 33-round magazine saw a fire rate decrease, as did the 72-round Gorenko magazine. So your rapid builds kind of invalidated at this point. We're going to take a look at that again here, probably in this week's loadout video coming Friday or Saturday. The AUG from Modern Warfare surprisingly got a handful of nerfs, the 5.56 NATO 30-round drum mag and the 60-round drum mag as well, decreasing the max damage, and mid damage range. The Whale Gun added Frangible as a weapon perk, with a fire rate decrease and a removal of the damage range penalty to the 120mm Gawain short barrel. The UGR finally had a magazine capacity increase to 40, up from 30, so maybe viable, maybe not. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then pistols, we saw the 1911 had buffs in magazine capacity and minimum damage to the ACP 18-round magazine. The Klauser had an overall buff to the max, mid, and min damages. The Rat saw mid and min damage increases with a neck damage multiplier increase as well. The Diamattis once again got hit, a nerf here, being a max damage and mid damage decrease. The machine pistol from Vanguard had a max, mid, and min damage increase with significant reduction to the base recoil control, though the attachments of the Gorenko 40-round magazine and Nambu 20-round magazines saw a fire rate and recoil control penalty decrease, while the rapid barrel had a fire rate multiplier decrease to 5%. Now, the final thing adjusted was the Panzerfaust, that being the ADS transition out time was decreased, making it a little bit quicker, and also the base movement scale was increased, as was the ADS movement speed scale that caught a buff on that as well. So that said, that is the weapon tuning here. Quite a few weapons that were adjusted, and a lot that honestly could do some damage to the overall meta. Of course, your sniper snipers now have a couple of more viable options, perhaps, with those one-shot headshot potentials. The Vargo may make its way back into the top 10. I'm very curious to see how the NZ plays around with those buffs. Of course, the bar may very well be a contender at this point. We'll have to see. Those BMG rounds are incredibly powerful, yes, but you're also going to have to deal with, of course, that lower fire rate. But with 60 rounds to work with, might make it worth it. But that said, that's where we're going to wrap it. We'll be breaking down everything further in loadout videos and meta videos here coming throughout the weekend. So drop your thoughts below. What do you guys think of these changes? Anything that stands out to you that is good, bad, whatever the case, drop it below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone, Modern Warfare 2, and anything COD related. We got you covered. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you in the community. That said, thanks so much for watching. Honest Man Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.